at Butner, North Carolina. I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer. I'm 67 years old. I've been incarcerated in the Federal Bureau of Prisons since 1982 with only one interruption of my federal sentences created by a successful prison escape. While incarcerated, I became a member of the Aryan Brotherhood. Over the years, I was elevated through the ranks and ultimately held the position commissioner of the Aryan Brotherhood. As the commissioner of the Aryan Brotherhood, I had a great deal of authority and power over other members of the AB in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. With this authority, I had the power to order beatings, stabbings, and executions that were carried out by other members of the AB. I was incarcerated in the Florence ADX Supermax prison facility for 13 months. During my time at ADX, I became familiar with a BOP official whose name is Childress. Mr. Childress held a position of authority. Childress had directed me to order assaults, beatings, and killings of inmates who had bothered BOP guards and other things. At the directions of Childress, I have ordered multiple assaults and homicides of various institutions. In exchange for ordering and or participating in these acts of violence, I and other members of the Aryan Brotherhood have received special privileges with the prisons in which we are housed. These privileges include no shakedowns, no cell searches, and the ability to freely traffic drugs all within the institution. I can provide the names of persons I have ordered, beaten, and killed at the explicit direction of Mr. Childress. The details of these incidents can also be confirmed by other witnesses. On or about February 2nd, 2023, I was housed in a special housing unit at USP Tucson. Without any warning, I was approached in my cell for an unexpected official visit by Mr. Childress and Warden Gutierrez. They took me out of my cell, brought me to an office here in the special housing unit. They advised me I was being sent to FCI Butner. He further advised that there was an inmate at Butner who poses a threat to the Bureau of Prisons and government, a person whose high-priced lawyers are going to expose a bunch of damaging information that will harm other BOP officers and higher up. Childress said it was his job to make sure this didn't happen. He told me he would like to help to eliminate the problem. He asked if I was familiar with R. Kelly.
These are people who seek to kill Mr. Kelly rather than allow the corrupt criminal conduct of those who manufactured his convictions be exposed.
I said I was aware of who he was from the news. Childress told me that Kelly is a rapist. Kelly raped little white girls. He told me Kelly was scum. And he told me that Kelly was someone the Aryan Brotherhood would want gone, and that R. Kelly poses a threat to the BOP. Childress told me that I would be sent to FCI Butner. He said I would go to the medical center first, and I would be moved to Kelly's unit. Here, Childress told me that I was to execute Robert Kelly. Childress told me I would be charged for the murder, but the evidence would be mishandled. He further told me I would be transferred following the incident, and on the way I would be permitted to escape, much like I did when I first escaped from BOP custody a long time ago. My prior escape and the details surrounding it are a matter of public record. Childress told me I could live out the last of my days as a free man as long as I followed his instruction. I agreed to his proposal. Gutierrez, I arrived at Butner in October 2023. In my experience, transfers never happened that quickly. After arriving there, my diagnosis, he told me there was no treatment for my cancer, and he said, you need to do what you came here for. Butner is a medical facility, for those who don't know. At Federal Correctional Institute, Butner is medical. And sometimes they'll stash, sort of like a protective custody, sort of, but mostly medical. After arriving on my new unit, I found Mr. Kelly. I followed him. I watched him. I considered how I would carry out his hit. Prison execution was nothing new to me, but I am also a dying man. I have a lifetime of violence and homicide that I will be held to account for, presumably by the Lord, our Savior, JC. While much of my conduct have been sanctioned by children in the BOP, my ultimate judgment is not coming from them. I know that for sure. I began to think about the last of my days and what I want to do with them. I thought about the decades of violence and killings I have seen and participated in. I thought about the way that Childress uses inmates to serve his purposes like animals and never faces consequences for any of it. I thought about how this happens every day in the BOP without anyone knowing or caring. With all of that on my mind, I approached R. Kelly. I thought about carrying out the act I was sent to do. I was prepared to carry out the execution, but in the moment when I got to Mr. Kelly, I made a different choice. I told him the truth. I told him that I had been sent to kill him. I told him how and by who. I told him his life was absolutely in danger and prepared to undergo a polygraph examination. Blah, 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 blah. That is the official statement entered into the United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois, which is where Chicago is, which is where R. Kelly was convicted and sentenced to 30 years for having sex with children, amongst other things, by a Mr. Michael, Mikeal, Glenn Stein, who purports to be an Aryan Brotherhood commissioner. Now, as you may or may not know, I've done many stories about the Aryan Brotherhood. Wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I'm a semi-expert on them. This guy ain't... Well, first of all, there's no the commissioner. There's 3 commissioners. Him being a USB Tucson is known as a dropout yard. And this guy, I looked up some information on this guy. He was doing... I think in 92 he caught maybe like a federal robbery charge. And from his prison cell, he wrote a bunch of letters threatening judges, and they gave him like another 12 or 15 years. So he's been in prison over 30 years. He escaped briefly at one point during it. So this is who R. Kelly is purporting. R. Kelly's trying to get out. He's saying his life's in danger. Not just from particular inmates, because remember, R. Kelly was assaulted already by a white Latin king, I think. He was stabbed with a golf pencil. The guy was kind of mentally ill, as are many inmates, even gang member inmates. In fact, many of the gang member inmates seem mentally ill. So Kelly just being in danger, this is interesting in the wake of the Tory Lanez thing. These celebrities have access to, when you get a long prison term, you don't want to give up the ghost. I mean, people want to get out. So these guys still have some money and lawyers. So now they're scraping, they're coming up with the most ridiculous ideas. So this guy has signed this affidavit. He submitted it to the court. He says he'll take a polygraph. That the Bureau of Prisons was using him, who was the Aryan Brotherhood leader, who was already beaten and unalived other inmates, guys that jumped on guards or people that were giving the Bureau of Prisons problems. Now, the best lie takes true elements and spins them out. And it is certainly true that guards will use the most violent, aggressive inmates to punish other inmates. Sometimes as far as, having an official booty grapist and throwing you in with them. If you cause the guards problems, you spit on a female guard or you do something beyond the pale. So, but this guy ain't in the Aryan Brotherhood. And specifically, R. Kelly he can't just say he's in danger from a particular inmate, because then they might just move you to another prison or put you in protective custody. He wants to get out. He got 30 years in 2021. He had probably been in custody a couple years. So probably 51, probably 2043 or something is his release date. I mean, he's got probably damn near 20 years left. And he wants to come home, and the only way he could get a judge to let him come home is to say that the Bureau of Prisons itself has R. Kelly's life in danger.
R. Kelly is seeking an immediate prison. R. Kelly is seeking an immediate prison release, claiming his life is in danger due to an alleged murder plot involving members of the Aryan Brotherhood. His legal team filed an emergency motion, alleging prison officials solicited inmates to kill him. R. Kelly
Willie D. Live.
What's up, family? R. Kelly wants to be let out of prison ASAP. According to his lawyers, the feds are trying to get him killed. Now, why would the feds want R. Kelly killed? Well, that's the $64 million question. But for right now, the lawyers ain't got time to figure out what that answer is. They want R. Kelly springed from jail right now. They say that he needs to be put on house arrest. Put him on house arrest while he serves out the rest of his time. R. Kelly is currently serving a 30-year prison sentence. His appeals were denied. So for right now, at least, he's serving a 30-year bid. In new court papers, R. Kelly's team claims a dying inmate named Mikhail Glenn Stein was told by prison staff to murder him in exchange for his freedom. Stein says he was told not to worry about the charges because the evidence would be covered up. Stein says he was ready to do it, but changed his mind and warned R. Kelly instead. He also claims another Aryan Brotherhood member was later asked to kill both him and R. Kelly. R. Kelly's lawyers say more gang members are showing up at the prison and the threat is growing. They want him released to home confinement before someone goes through with it. R. Kelly is currently serving a 30-year prison sentence for sex trafficking and racketeering. An appeals court upheld his convictions earlier this year. All right, fam, you know how this go. Give me a thumbs up if you think that the judge is going to let R. Kelly out on home confinement. Thumbs down if you say, nah, man, they ain't gonna do it like that. If he get out, it won't be like that. I'll give you a few moments to think about it. Okay, time's up. Listen, that judge is not going to grant that motion. If that was the case, the courts would be filled with motions from inmates requesting to finish their time out at home. Yeah. You don't even have to have proof. You just say somebody told you, and boom, you just go home. And you know they can't have that. They're making too much money, man. They're making way too much money on these prisons. Not only are the people who own these prisons making money, corporations who are not even invested, who don't have stock in these prisons, are making money because they're getting labor at a cut rate. They're getting labor at a slave rate. Call them slave wages. Yeah, pennies on the dollar. These guys out here building everything from muscle cars to license plates. They're designing clothes, manufacturing clothes. Did you know that? Yeah. Prisons are pretty much self-contained, but they want us to think that it's our tax dollars that are financing all of this stuff. Listen, fam, even though they take the money, they don't need that money. The tax dollar is crumbs compared to the corporate money and the private money they pour in from these prisons. Oh.
You got knocked the out, man!
What's going on, y'all, and happy Wednesday. I hope everybody out there is feeling fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump all over this R. Kelly situation. So R. Kelly's lawyers have substantial proof that there's a deletion for hire plot against R. Kelly in a North Carolina penitentiary where he's serving his 30-year sentence. Now, according to reports, this plot on R. Kelly's life is being spearheaded by prison officials along with an inmate who happens to be the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood. Now, his name is McKeel Glenn Stein, and he's a terminally ill inmate, but again, he's the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, and he basically snitched and said that authorities offered him his freedom to spend his last days on the outside in exchange for deleting R. Kelly. Now, I want you guys to pay close attention on how this wicked plot was supposed to go down. So Stein was going to delete R. Kelly, and then prison officials was going to actually step in and fumble the evidence and ultimately bury the case. Stein also claims that an official said that he could be transferred after doing the deed and he would be allowed to escape and stay free. Now, initially, Stein was ready to carry out this hit. He actually went to R. Kelly's housing area back in March, only to turn back around at the last minute, and he actually snitched on the Bureau of Prisons officials, detailing that they were the ones that actually ordered the hit. And he even approached R. Kelly personally to tell him what went down, and he also said that he will take a polygraph test. And so this is a really dynamic situation because now another member of the Aryan Brotherhood has been instructed to delete both Kelly and Stein, according to reports. So they want to get rid of Stein for snitching on the prison officials, and they want to take out R. Kelly at the same time. So because of these drastic chain of events, R. Kelly moved to file an emergency motion for prison release because he's saying basically that the NAZIS are trying to delete him. Now, I will say that it's very interesting that Stein did not carry out this plot because given the nature of the Aryan Brotherhood, they are very racist, and it's nothing for them to get rid of anybody that does not look like them. And the fact that he kind of had a guilty conscience right before he was going to do it, and he actually turned back around and told R. Kelly about it, is extremely puzzling to me because normally that's not how the Aryan Brotherhood operates. They normally execute the mission, or at least try to. So this man is terminally ill. Maybe he felt like he didn't want to live the rest of his days with that on his conscience, and that's why he squealed. But at the end of the day, R. Kelly better thank his lucky stars. I don't think they're going to let him out of prison. They'll just transfer him to another facility. But anyway, let's move right along. And I want to revisit the horrific story about these two YouTubers that had been beefing for quite some time. And this past Sunday night, a guy by the name of Manny actually deleted a fellow YouTuber along with his wife. There's a couple of updates. I have a video of Manny actually appearing in front of a judge. And then there's a couple people that are going into depth about what transpired and the nature of this whole horrific accident. I want you guys to take a look at this, and I'll be back.
Good morning, Mr. Ruiz. You were arrested for 2 counts of open of a death. The court did find probable cause existed for your arrest. You need to hear from the district attorney's office today, and then hear from the public defender.
Your Honor, it's the state's understanding the public defender would like to pass this to the department.
That is correct, Your Honor. I would like our homicide team to handle this case personally, so we're asking for 2 days to the department.
So, Mr. Ruiz, this court will be holding you on no bail. I am going to send your case to the department that will ultimately be hearing your case going forward. And you will have your Valdez and Menace hearing at that point. That court date will be
June 12 at 8:30 in Department 14.
Thank you.
So let me give you an update on this clown right here. Las Vegas shooter and YouTuber, Sin City Manny, or Vegas Manny, however you want to put it. He had his first appearance today with the judge, and the first thing out of his mouth was, this was all in self-defense. Come on. This incident was live streamed by the wife of the YouTuber that he took out. There's a video of him prior to this, of him looking all over different casinos for the YouTuber that he unalived. But he's claiming this was self-defense. One of the claims of the other YouTuber during their 2-year-long feud was that this guy was not all right in the head. He had mental illness, and that sent this guy over the edge. But it seems like the claims were right on, because this guy is not right. And that's why he claims self-defense when there's nobody was attacking him. They were doing a live stream when he came up and started. But in his head, it was self-defense. They're probably going to throw the book at this guy, which is well-deserved. And it's good to have him off the streets of Las Vegas because I think we can all feel a little safer that he won't be on them.
I want to start by saying rest in peace to Finney and his wife.
So, R. Kelly, who's doing 30 years for all types of pedophilia acts on minors, sex trafficking, has allegedly been the target of a murder-for-hire plot that gets deep. It says the officers, the COs, and the bureaus of prison were working hand in hand with some members of the Aryan Brotherhood to try to get him whacked. And they've even tried to poison his food. There's evidence, there's audio recordings, and even about 4 years ago, a Latin king had jumped on him when he was first in Chicago about to take his time. And they're saying all roads lead to the prosecutor. Now, if you don't remember the prosecutor in this case or never followed it, basically what he was doing was allegedly hired this sex offender roommate of R. Kelly to get some information from his cell, gave it to him, and then he made a fake email burner account that they did prove used it during court. However, there's some real intricate plots in here. Let's get into it. R. Kelly, aka Robert Kelly, one of the biggest R&B singers of all time, was acquitted in 2008 on state child sex abuse material. Yet,
I'm probably the only person online who shares every single one of my trades completely for free. I live
material. Yet, he'd be indicted federally in 2019 for racketeering, sex trafficking. That case will give him 30 years in prison. Then he'd be indicted later on in Chicago and get sentenced to 20 years for another case of child sexual abuse material, totaling 50 years consecutive. Now, in August of 2019, while he was still in MCC Chicago awaiting trial, Kelly was attacked by Latin King member Jeremiah Farmer, who entered his cell and physically assaulted him, head wounds included. Latin King Farmer later said he did it to shed light on alleged government corruption. He would later get convicted for racketeering and murder and get a life sentence. Now, things get a little bit more shady. In 2020, a sex offender named Kishan Madhugamadu, convicted in 2020 of sex trafficking Indian actress, was housed at MCC Chicago during Kelly's trial. He stole R. Kelly's attorney-client mail, turning it into the Bureau of Prisons investigators, who then passed the documents to federal prosecutors without notifying Kelly's lawyers. Obviously, this violates the attorney-client privilege, violating Kelly's defense and gives him a chance at appeal. Not only was the information stolen from his cell by a fellow sex offender, besides the prosecutor having an upper hand in the knowledge during trial, he would also use the stolen materials to influence Jane and Azriela Clary's testimony, two of his girlfriends that testified against him. And whatever he found on that hasn't been released to the public was used to pressure them. It was also alleged that in 2022, this same prosecutor would use fake emails and aliases to communicate with witnesses pretending to be a journalist. The assistant U.S. attorney, Angel Krul, allegedly used the fake name and private burner Demetrius Slavansky. The reason why it was so relevant is because Kelly's legal team claims it's misconduct, prosecutors using unofficial channels to shape public testimony and undermining the judicial transparency. He would also use two other emails as he got in contact with the journalist. So let's go to the murder-for-hire plot. R. Kelly's legal team has filed an emergency motion in federal court requesting that he be released to house arrest. They cite a credible death threat from the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, according to inmate Michael Glenn Stein, a self-identified Aryan Brotherhood. A commissioner, he's saying, was his rank. 3 high-ranking Bureau of Prison officials approached him to kill Kelly, offering him a chance to escape and avoid conviction. Stein would later go on to say, not only did he have audio evidence that could show the warden and assistant wardens are in on this plot, he also said he would go to the same prison where Kelly is serving the 50-year sentence. Other member of the organization that was going to try to whack R. Kelly through poisoning was David Harris, member of the Aryan Brotherhood, reportedly approached to kill R. Kelly alongside with Michael Glenn Stein. Unlike Stein, he is actually a documented high-ranking Aryan Brother member. Harris has been incarcerated on federal racketeering charges tied to his role in the Aryan Brother operations, supply lines, intimidation, coordination of violence within the prison system, which would ultimately lead to his sentencing in 2019 under the RICO statutes for his leadership role with the Aryan Brotherhood. He was currently housed at FCI Butner, the same complex as R. Kelly. He's been with the organization for at least 15 years, with tattoos representing the organization that are visible in records and earlier media coverage. The background of Stein is a little different. The man who uncovered the plot and told on everybody in the Aryan Brotherhood. The only difference about him, he's not documented and has no history of doing anything to benefit the organization. However, as I'll get into later, they have recordings and also signed testimony from both of these dudes. One who's a documented high-ranking member saying, yeah, this really happened. I was supposed to poison him and he was supposed to do the hit if he lived. Meaning that if they weren't able to poison his canteen and not die from that, that they would grab a knife and end him right there on the yard or wherever they could hit him. Stein, originally convicted in Arizona State Court, Stein received a 16-year sentence for conspiracy to commit aggravated assault. During his state incarceration, he filed multiple civil rights lawsuits, including fights over law library access and prison designation decisions. However, later, he would get sentenced to 90 months in federal prison for threatening a magistrate judge. Stein, who has a death sentence, what I mean by that, he has terminal cancer. He was transferred to the Bureau of Prisons Medical Unit at FCI Butner, North Carolina in October 2023, reportedly due to terminal cancer. He remained in the medical unit until March 2025, when he was moved in the same high-security unit as R. Kelly. This is where things get a little gray. Being moved out of a protected medical zone into a regular high-security housing made interaction and the hit attempt very, very possible. And as someone who's done a lot of time in prison, if someone has terminal cancer, you're not going to see them on the main pound, especially in an isolated protective custody wing or high custody control management wing.
You left everything behind. Your home, your family, the streets that knew your name. All for the promise of a better future in a new country. They told us, work hard here and success will follow. So we did. We worked nights, we worked weekends, we sent money home while skipping our own meals. We believed, we waited, we kept going. But the doors didn't open. And this wasn't the plan. This wasn't why you made such a huge sacrifice. I have been there, in the same shoes. When I landed in Chicago, I had no tech degree, no big university badge, no fancy English, and no rich uncle. My name is Ankit Maheshwari. I am a serial entrepreneur now, and in 2024, I was awarded as AI Entrepreneur of the Year. But I am really proud of it that I have helped thousands of professionals like you transition from non-tech background into tech, data science and AI. Now I am bringing a free 2-day generative AI data analytics bootcamp with some tangible outcomes for you in mind.
Management wing. This is where I think things don't add up, but it gets deeper and deeper as I keep going. I'm interested to hear y'all opinion. Stein would go on to say he had got cold feet after weeks of doing surveillance. He would walk up to Kelly on April 11th and say, "I was sent to kill you," then filed an official declaration supporting Kelly's emergency motion. 2 Aryan Brotherhood dropout members will continue saying how they got recruited. They said 3 senior Bureau of Prison officials, including at least an assistant warden and a warden, allegedly approached Stein while he was in Tucson, Arizona, offering escape in his final days if he killed Kelly. Motivation, they told him, was Kelly is scum. He is a rapist. He's going to expose all of our corruption and all the money we're making here. Even went on to say protection from prosecution and a planned escape during transport. Stein would say he surveilled Kelly for weeks, but then confessed the plot to kill him himself. The second Aryan Brotherhood member, David Keith Harris, was also approached. Discussions even included poisoning Kelly's food or commissary. Official whistleblower document went like this. An inmate and whistleblower who is listed as a Federal Bureau of Prison officer plotting to poison R. Kelly using tainted food after the Aryan Brotherhood issued an active hit against Kelly. Stein, representing the Aryan Brotherhood, claimed he was tasked was census work for the racial prison gang, in which he overheard another inmate being recruited to carry out the hit. Stein filed a declaration linking the Bureau of Prison Lieutenant Christopher Covington to plot against Kelly. Stein would allege he heard another inmate being ordered by Lieutenant Covington to make Kelly's prison food lethal. Other accusations against Covington by Stein include encouraging guards to undermine protection for sex offender inmates and soliciting guards to smuggle in contraband. What do y'all think? We got a Latin king beating the shit out of him in 2019, saying it was for government corruption. We got his cellmate sex offender stealing his legal work and giving it to the DA. Got Lieutenant Covington, an officer for the Bureau of Prisons, saying let's hit these sex offenders, let's poison Kelly's food, and let's put this work in so he stops fucking up the program. However, if you're a chomo, fuck ya. Stay out, stay free. Us.
If you want to make a full-time income from home working part-time, you need to know this one concept.
How can I pay child support? How? If my ex-wife is destroying my name and I can't work, how can I work? How can I get paid? How can I take care of my kids? How?
The explosive R. Kelly interview with Gayle King continues. Now CBS This Morning is sharing an inside look at the R&B legend's financial struggles.
This is just one day after Kelly was taken into custody due to over $161,000 in unpaid child support payments. His rep told ET the singer offered to pay $50,000 to $60,000 in court on Wednesday and set up a payment plan, but the judge denied that offer.
The 52-year-old expressed shock when it was rejected. His rep adds, quote, "You could see the air go out of him. He never expected that." Here's what he told King about his money troubles before his arrest.
What is your financial situation, if you don't mind saying?
Here's the deal. So many people have been stealing my money. People was connected to my account. I went by myself for the first time to Bank of America. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know what the hell was going on.
When did you do that? First time by yourself?
About 3 weeks ago to a month.
3 weeks ago was the first time you went to Bank of America?
Absolutely.
By yourself?
By myself. Because I was so tired of not knowing where my money was, where my publishing is.
Isn't that on you then?
Huh?
Isn't that on you?
A lot of it's on me.
That you didn't know where your money is?
A lot of it's on me.
And people say he doesn't have money because he had to pay so much in settlements. What do you say about that?
Lie.
Kelly says he had about $350,000 and he wanted to start a new account, but it would take a week to clear. Now he claims that his ex-wife, Andrea Kelly, lied in the Lifetime docuseries.
Your ex-wife says you abused her, Robert.
13 lies. 13 years being married. I flew in on a helicopter. I flew in on a helicopter.
Yes. Yes. Can somebody give us some tissue?
I don't want no tissue. Not once have I ever had a domestic violence call at the house and all this, that, and the other. It never happened.
And that's when it became real to me, like, you're being abused.
Is Andrea not telling the truth when she says she was abused by you? Why is she making that up, Robert?
I'm not disrespecting her by saying she's not telling the truth. I'm just being honest. Somebody sent me something on my phone and it said that I hog-tied her. I don't know how to hog-tie people. What would I hog-tie? My kids is listening to this, all of this nonsense, and I ain't been able to spend no time with them. This is real. This is not a lie.
And Kelly's next court date is set for March 13th for child support and again on March 22nd for his sex abuse allegations. Detroit police confirm they are also investigating Kelly for allegedly having sex with a teenage girl almost 2 decades ago.
Yeah, that's a separate case we're dealing with now. Gayle King also sat down with R. Kelly's live-in girlfriends, 23-year-old Joycelyn Savage and 21-year-old Azriel Clary.
I think the interviews with the girls are very fascinating and very revealing. What is your relationship, both of you, with R. Kelly?
We're with him. That's our relationship.
We're with him. Yeah,
We
that's
live
what
with
it
him,
is.
And we're in a relationship with him.
Right.
You just said it.
A very strong relationship as
Both
well.
of you?
Yes, most definitely.
Following King's interview, she opened up to ET about the energy in the room.
When you talk to them, they get very angry. They're very angry at their parents. They say that this is all about money, that their parents were trying to get money from R. Kelly, that they've gotten money from R. Kelly in the past, that their parents introduced them to R. Kelly. So it really is a lot of he said, she said, they said. It's just it's a big mess all the way around in this story. Is it a three-way sexual relationship?
Sexually? Well, first of all, I'm not
three of you?
here to talk about my personal life.
Okay.
And I would never share with no one what I do in or outside of the bedroom. And as a woman, I'm sure you would not either.
No, I wouldn't, but
okay then.
No, you're
next
right.
question.
Both Savage and Clary's parents have spoken out publicly, fearing their daughters have been brainwashed into being part of an alleged sex cult, something both girls adamantly deny.
Tell me, Azriel, why you're crying. Tell me.
I'm crying because you guys don't know the truth. You guys are believing some facade that our parents are saying. This is all lies for money. And if you can't see that, you're ignorant and you're stupid as
They got very emotional and they wish that their parents would stop, in their words, lying on them. They wish their parents would leave them alone. They said they're very happy, they're very safe, and they both love R. Kelly, and they are both his girlfriends.
Of course, this story is still developing, so subscribe to All Things ET. And
Kitty Jones and Asante McGee both say they had relationships with R. Kelly. Asante says she dated him from 2014 to 2016 and lived in his home for a month. Kitty says she started dating the singer back in June 2011. She thought they were in love and in a monogamous relationship. She gave up her job as a DJ, says she moved into his Atlanta home in November 2011 and spent 2 years there. But Kitty says the relationship became violent within weeks of her arrival. She shared details of her time with R. Kelly in her book, I Was Somebody Before This. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
What a title, Kitty. What a title.
Thank you.
So you were in that home for 2 years.
Yes.
Within 3 weeks, he became physically abusive?
It was actually Chicago, not Atlanta. Okay. About 2 weeks after I had moved in, I had confronted him about a videotape that I had saw, and it was a girl that he had introduced me to, and that was the first time he became abusive, because I noticed that the girl in the tape was someone that he had gone to court for, and he had introduced me to her, and I didn't know how to handle the information that I had just...
Just to be clear, he went to court on child pornography charges for a sex tape he was in. The prosecutors alleged he was having sex with a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
He was acquitted because the jury said, we can't identify that woman, and so we don't know whether she was 14. So they didn't think they could prove it was a child.
Right.
And
right.
you know this girl, and...
He introduced me to her, and this is 2011, so years had gone by, and this person's an older woman now, but when I saw the videotape, I realized that that was the same girl he had introduced me to. So.
And how old do you believe she was
me.
in that sex tape?
When I did the math, compared to how old she was when he introduced her to me, it landed on 14.
So you believe he was guilty of that charge?
Yes, and I confronted him about it, and that's when the first time he abused me.
I know you say he became extremely controlling.
Yes.
How so?
I had to wear sweatpants. I had to stand up when he would walk in a room. I did have to be on his phone plan. I know that the Savages did mention that. He would put a lot of his girlfriends on his phone plan so he can control, like, who you're talking to, how often you talk to your family, what you're texting, things like that.
Is it true he controlled things as little as you walking out of a room, you going to use the bathroom, you wanting to eat.
Yes.
How? What would you have to do?
You would have to send a text message to one of his runners, just asking, like, you know, if you can go to the restroom, and then they'll relay the information to him, because you weren't, like, free to walk throughout the house.
You had to ask permission to go use the bathroom?
Yes. Yes.
And he would use food, you claim, as a punishment.
Right. When I met him, I was about 130 pounds. When I left 2 years later, I was 107 pounds.
So how does somebody like you, a successful DJ, live in a normal life, who you meet him at this party, how do you get sucked into a situation where you agree to these crazy terms, right? That's a lot of people are going to be asking.
Right. It was just a normal, the same way that if you met a guy at a gas station and you thought, okay, this is going to be, you don't have those expectations where, I mean, you just don't think, like, when you go into something and you give up things and you compromise, like, okay, I'm going to move to another city or another state, you know, from our relationship. When you give those things up and for love, you don't expect that that person's going to turn into something else. You're just in it. So by the time I walked away from those things, which I detail in my book, and it'll make more sense.
No, but they rein you in bit by bit.
Yeah, and
I mean,
I just felt like I gave up everything, and then once I was there, I was just in it. And the more I started learning about him, I just got sucked into it, and I felt like I didn't have anything else to go back to.
Now, Sante, did you have a similar experience with him?
I did. When I first met him back in 2013 during the Black Panties tour, he was this wonderful guy. He always made you laugh. You never saw anything wrong with him. Flying back and forth for 2 years, going to different shows, hanging out with him, he was just always this funny guy. And it was the summer of 2016, the beginning of the buffet tour. He pretty much put me on the bus from city to city back in Dallas, Texas, and I ended up in Oklahoma. And from Oklahoma, I ended up in Atlanta.
But did he control you in the way he controlled Kitty?
He controlled me once I moved in.
How so? Can you give us examples?
For example, when I was just flying in back and forth, he would send me texts. And for instance, I want to say Easter of 2015, I went to Chicago and I sat in the hotel for like 3 days before even having contact with him. And the day when I was about to leave, he just texted me out the blue and said, come to the studio. And I called an Uber to the studio. I arrived there like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I told him I'm here. And he had his assistant put me in a Sprinter, which is a traveling van. I sat there from like 11 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock that night.
But what about, did you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom and get food and leave a room?
Yes, when I was on the Sprinter, I had to use the restroom, and I texted him, Daddy, I need to use the restroom. No
Daddy?
response. Yes, we were required to call him Daddy.
Required to?
Yes, he told us to call him Daddy. You would address him as Daddy.
And if you didn't, you were...
Yeah, you would get in trouble if you didn't.
Yeah, or slapped.
How many women you were there most recently, so how many women are in this house?
At the time when I was there, it was a total of 4 of us, and it was 2.
Did you see Joycelyn?
Yes, I did see Joycelyn. My first time seeing Joycelyn was when I was at the house, and at this time he told me whenever you enter a room, you have to knock on a door and wait for permission for someone to say come in.
Do you think Joycelyn is there of her own free will?
No, I don't.
Do you think she's been brainwashed?
Definitely. Because the things that he say, he make you turn. He pretty much try to say that your family is jealous that you're with him, your family wants to be with him, and you're happy, and this is what you need to do. And if you disobey him, he would like fake cry and make you sympathize. For instance, when we were in Oklahoma.
Let me just stand you by, because he gave us a statement, and he's called these accusations unjust and unfair. He says the media has not spoken to enough women who support him. And in a statement to Variety, his management team said, Kelly's music is a part of American and African American culture that should never and will never be silenced. We will vigorously resist this attempted public lynching of a black man who has made extraordinary contributions to our culture. I have to get you to react to that. Your thoughts that this is a public lynching of a black man?
That's bullcrap. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. It's bull.
Listen, it takes a lot of strength and guts to come out and speak publicly about
The breaking news now regarding singer R. Kelly. We are learning now he has been sentenced to 30 years in prison after being convicted of sex trafficking and racketeering in connection with recruiting women and children for sex. His attorney was asking for fewer than 14 years in prison, citing the music superstar turned sex offender's traumatic childhood. Clearly, that's not how the court saw it.
So for more, let's bring in senior investigative reporter Aaron Katursky along with legal analyst Bernardo Villalona. So Aaron, first, tell us about what we heard from the accusers in this case and what they brought to the sentencing.
They brought some emotional heft to the sentencing hearing, Terry, because the accusers stood up in court and told the judge how years of psychological manipulation and sexual exploitation and abuse by R. Kelly ruined their lives. One woman said that she wished she would just die. And this is all while she was underage. And that was what federal prosecutors said was so troubling. R. Kelly was one of the most successful artists in the music industry in the 1990s and 2000s, but there had always been allegations about sexual misconduct. And only now is that getting an airing, and is he being held to account? Federal prosecutors said R. Kelly used his fame and his wealth and relied on his inner circle to repeatedly sexually exploit women and girls, and showed no remorse, and in fact seemed to believe that as a music superstar, he was somehow immune from having to behave lawfully.
So, Bernarda, defense attorneys for R. Kelly argued that their client should get a break, in part because he experienced a traumatic childhood. I know you're going to have a reaction to that.
So, yes, the defense did ask for R. Kelly to get a break. But before she asked for him to get a break, she made a statement to the gallery. And the judge has to stop her and say, make your statement to me, because she started saying that I am doing my job. It's not that I'm enabling R. Kelly. I'm doing my job. But either way, she wanted the judge to take into account his childhood, the trauma that he suffered during his childhood. And according to with federal law, with the 3553A factors, yes, a judge can consider that. However, what happened here is that we had one of the victim's father not testify, but actually make a statement to the judge. Look, I was sexually assaulted and molested when I was a child, and I did not turn out like you. So that backfired for R. Kelly. The judge took that into account and mentioned that when she was giving her reasoning for sentencing R. Kelly to 30 years.
That is very powerful and true. And Aaron, I want to ask you about the decades that you said he was one of the biggest stars in the music industry, as you pointed out. People had to know that when the allegations were public for all these years. People still worked with him, and the criminal justice system didn't quite get to him until very, very late. How much of an impact did that documentary, Surviving R. Kelly, play and have in getting us here and in the nature of this sentence? If he had done the same crimes and wasn't the focus of a documentary, would he be looking at 30 years?
Surviving R. Kelly, that explosive documentary, played an incredible role in this prosecution. In fact, it was because an investigator from Homeland Security Investigations watched it on TV that they finally decided to open a case, and that's what led to this 30-year sentence. If it were not for that documentary, you might argue, Terry, that R. Kelly would not be here. But investigators saw it. They couldn't help but be moved by it. And then they started to interview some of the very same women who were part of that documentary. And they built this case using more than a half dozen women to help convict R. Kelly of racketeering. And that included a dozen separate criminal counts, including this psychological manipulation, this kidnapping, physical and sexual abuse. And it also included a bribery scheme involving his marriage to Aaliyah. The late singer was 15 years old when she married R. Kelly, and there's an allegation that a bribe was arranged to an Illinois official to get her a fake ID.
Bernarda, you were in the courtroom. Just give us some color. Tell us what it was like. I know that there were dozens of witnesses that testified, just talking about how R. Kelly preyed on children for his own gratification time and time again, and that he was able to get by with it, and that, like you mentioned, so many people close to him knew exactly what was going on.
Absolutely. During the trial, you got to think the prosecution presented 45 witnesses and the defense presented 5 witnesses. And to have been in a courtroom doing the trial and then coming today to the sentencing was a culmination of the trial. Except at the sentencing, you got to hear these victims give more emotion, tell you what they suffered and what they've been suffering for the last 20 years. Women who have been considering committing suicide, who wish they were never born, that they are saying that it was their fault. It was chilling. And the tears that came down, genuine tears from these grown women, was really troubling to me. It really bothered me because R. Kelly, yes, you're a celebrity. Yes, you're the Pied Piper. Yes, you're the king of R&B. But now you're also a sexually convicted felon who's going to do at least 27 years in federal custody.
Did he testify? We were on the air.
No.
Did he? Okay, he didn't testify. Did he give a statement?
He did not give his statement. The only statement he gave to the judge when the judge asked whether he wished to give a statement, the defense attorney said that he has open cases as well as he will have a pending appeal, and that it is his wish not to say anything to the court.
So, Aaron, what happens next here? Will there be more charges from other complaining witnesses, or is there a certain prison that he's likely to go to? What does his future look like?
Well, this is it as far as federal prosecutors in Brooklyn are concerned, but R. Kelly faces charges in other states, and now that he has been found guilty here, it could open the floodgates, and certainly prosecutors would like other women to come forward, or other men in this case, if they were somehow exploited or sexually abused by R. Kelly. They are still taking witness statements and are open to that. This was the main set of charges, though, and R. Kelly's defense was something that I think even the judge seemed to find offensive, that the defense said that these were women who were just out to get a little fame and a little bit of money, and they were chasing R. Kelly. It wasn't like he needed to go out and recruit them, but prosecutors said these were human beings, Aaron, who were severely mistreated.
So we're told R. Kelly's lawyer is speaking right now. We're going to take that live. Stay with us, please. Bernardo, you too, if you can.
So it's really important for there's a great deal of things that have to be explained in a little more slowly. So,
but in terms of the sentence, how does he feel about the sentence?
Well, I mean, obviously he's devastated. 30 years in prison is like a life sentence for him. But at the same time, you know, we knew the government was asking for 25 years. We were prepared for what the judge might impose. So it didn't come as a great big surprise. We were prepared for it, and we are now prepared to fight this appeal. For us, it's just the beginning of the fight, frankly. So we were prepared going in for today, and he's doing okay with it, despite
he
it.
had a chance to speak in his own defense. Why did he not want to make a statement?
A statement in allocution? Well, that was on advice of counsel. That was on my advice.
Why?
Because he has pending cases. It's obvious. He's got pending cases, and he has a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and I advised him to invoke that Fifth Amendment right. I promise you, he does want to make a statement. He will make statements eventually, but on the advice of counsel, he remains silent today.
What can you say to convince the public that he is not guilty?
Okay, so the appeal will lay out that the enterprise that was charged, as you will see if you've read my post-trial motions, which you probably have not, our position is this was not a RICO or racketeering act violation. These were isolated events that happened many years ago, and the government simply tried to plead around the statute of limitations to bring it in a RICO charge, which was inappropriate. So, I mean, all I can tell you is there was no enterprise. There was no enterprise. It was one man with allegations by a number of women, which doesn't make it an enterprise. And that is why he's not guilty of racketeering.
You said how many family members? You said he was remorseful. What did you mean by that? You said he didn't have to confess, but that he was remorseful.
I said he has regrets and he is sad. Nobody wants to hear what he heard today. He's a human being. He feels when other people are feeling, but that doesn't mean that he's can accept responsibility in the way that the government would like him to and the way other people would like him to, because he disagrees. He is not, he disagrees with the characterizations that have been made about him. But that doesn't mean he's not a human being and can't feel something when other people are in pain.
Is his abuser here today? You said that his sister abused him as he was a kid. He has 4 people here today.
Yes, he has a number of friends here today. No, his sister is not here today. He's been estranged from her for quite some time. He has 2 brothers who are fully in support of him, who were also victims of sexual abuse in his household. So they are here in spirit, although not here personally. So, no.
And what do you say to people who say he's a predator?
Have you had the opportunity to speak to Joy?
Yes, I speak to Joy regularly, and Joy is just fine. She is sad, but she told him, and she sent me a text message telling him to pray and put it in God's hands, and she loves him, and they're going to get through this. That's what she had to say to him.
Is he a predator?
No, he's not. No, he's not a predator. Anything?